Abdelaziz Bouteflika is an Algerian politician who has been the fifth president of Algeria since 1999. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1963 to 1979. As president, he presided over the end of the bloody Algerian Civil War in 2002, and he ended emergency rule in February 2011 amidst regional unrest. He has also served as President of the United Nations General Assembly. Protests in Algeria took place between 2010 and 2012. Protesters demanded a regime change, as well as solutions to problems with unemployment, corruption, restrictions of freedom of speech, and poor living conditions. In November 2012, he surpassed ﷺ as the longest-serving president of Algeria. Family. Abdelaziz Bouteflika was born on March 2, 1937 in Oudé, French Morocco. He was the first child of his mother and the second child of his father. His father and mother originated from the region of Tlemcen, Algeria. Bouteflika has three half-sisters, as well as four brothers and one sister. Saudi serves as Abdelaziz Bouteflika's personal physician, and is said by some to be an important figure in Bouteflika's inner circle of advisors. Early years and War of Independence. Bouteflika was raised in Oudé, where his father had emigrated as a youngster. He successively attended three schools there, Sidi Ziane, El Horshinia, and the Abdel Momen High School, where he reportedly excelled academically. He was also affiliated with Kadri Zaouia in Oudé. In 1956, Bouteflika went to the village of Oudama near Tlemcen and subsequently joined Euro at the age of 19 the Army of National Liberation, which was a military branch of the National Liberation Front Party. He was militarily instructed at the École des Cadres in Dar el Kebdani, Morocco. In 1957 1958, he was designated a controller of the YLV, making reports on the conditions at the Moroccan border and in West Algeria, but later became the administrative secretary of ﷺ. He emerged as one of the closest collaborators of the influential ﷺ, and a core member of his Oudé group. In 1962, at the arrival of independence, he aligned with ﷺ and the border armies in support of Ahmed Ben Bella against the provisional government of the Algerian Republic. Post-independence political career. After independence in 1962, Bouteflika became deputy of Tlemcen in the Constituent Assembly and Minister for Youth and Sport in the government led by Ahmed Ben Bella. The following year, he was appointed as Minister for Foreign Affairs. He was later a prime mover in the military coup led by ﷺ that overthrew Ben Bella on June 19, 1965. Bouteflika continued as Minister for Foreign Affairs until the death of President ﷺ in 1978. He was also President of the 29th Union General Assembly in 1974 and that of the 7th Special Session in 1975. While in these posts he came in for severe criticism from U.S. for what were regarded as politically partisan decisions. In 1981, he was sued for having stolen Algerian embassy's money between 1965 and 1979. On August 8, 1983, Bouteflika was convicted by the Court of Financial Auditors and found guilty of having fraudulently taken 60 million dinars during his diplomatic career. In his defense, Bouteflika said that he reserved that money to build a new building for the Foreign Affairs Ministry. The court judged his argument as fallacious. In 1979, just after the death of ﷺ, Bouteflika reimbursed 12,212,875.81 dinars out of the 70 million dinars that was deposited in a Swiss bank. Although Bouteflika was granted amnesty by the President Chadli bin Jedid, his colleagues Senussi and Boujakjai were jailed. After the amnesty, Bouteflika was given back his diplomatic passport, a villa where he used to live but did not own, and all his debt was erased. He never paid back the money he reserved for a new Foreign Affairs Ministry's building. Succession struggle and exile. Following ﷺ's unexpected death in 1978, Bouteflika was seen as one of the two main candidates to succeed the powerful president. Bouteflika was thought to represent the party's right wing that was more opening to economic reform and rapprochement with the West. Colonel Mohammed Salah Yaoui represented the Boomer copyright Zionist left wing. In the end, the military opted for a compromise candidate, the senior army colonel Shadli bin Jedid. Bouteflika was reassigned the role of Minister of State, but successively lost power as bin Jedid's policies of the Boomer copyright demonization marginalized the old guard. After 6 years abroad, the army brought him back to the Central Committee of the FLN in 1989, after the country had entered a troubled period of unrest and disorganized attempts at reform, with power struggles between bin Jedid and a group of army generals paralyzing decision-making. In 1992, the reform process ended abruptly when the army took power and scrapped elections that were about to bring the fundamentalist Islamic Salvation Front to power. This triggered a civil war that would last throughout the 1990s. During this period, Bouteflika stayed on the sidelines, with little presence in the media and no political role. In January 1994, Bouteflika is said to have refused the army's proposal to succeed the assassinated president, Mohamed Boudiaf. He claimed later that this was because the army would not grant him full control over the armed forces. Instead, General Lamine Zaa Copyright Raoul became president. First term as president, 1999–2004. In 1999, Zaa Copyright Raoul unexpectedly stepped down and announced early elections. The reasons behind his decision remain unclear, but it is widely claimed that his pro-reconciliation policies towards the Islamist insurgency had incurred the wrath of a hardline faction in the armed forces. Or that some other disagreement with the military, which still dominated politics, lay behind the schism. Bouteflika ran for president as an independent candidate, supported by the military. He was elected with 74% of the votes, according to the official count. All other candidates withdrew from the election immediately prior to the vote, citing fraud concerns. Bouteflika subsequently organized a referendum on his policies to restore peace and security to Algeria and to test his support among his countrymen after the contested election. He won with 81% of the vote, but this figure was also disputed by opponents. Foreign policy. Bouteflika was also active on the international scene, presiding over what many have characterized as Algeria's return to international affairs, after almost a decade of international isolation. He presided over the African Union in 2000, secured the Algiers peace treaty between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and supported peace efforts in the African Great Lakes region. He also secured a friendship treaty with neighboring Spain in 2002, and welcomed President Chirac of France on a state visit to Algiers in 2003. This was intended as a prelude to the signature of a friendship treaty. Algeria has been particularly active in African relations, and in mending ties with the West, as well as trying to some extent to resurrect its role in the declining non-aligned movement. However, it has played a more limited role in Arab politics, its other traditional sphere of interest. Relations with the Kingdom of Morocco remained quite tense, with diplomatic clashes on the issue of the Western Sahara, despite some expectations of a thaw in 1999, which was also the year of King Mohammed VI's accession to the throne in Morocco. Second term as president, 2004–09, on April 8, 2004, he was re-elected by an unexpectedly high 85% of the vote in an election that was accepted by OSCE observers as a free and fair election, despite minor irregularities. This was contested by his rival and former Chief of Staff Ali Benfli. Several opponents alleged that the election had not been fair, and pointed to extensive state control over the broadcast media. The electoral victory was widely seen as a confirmation of Bouteflika's strengthened control over the state apparatus, and many saw the following retirement of longtime Armed Forces Commander General Mohamed Lamari in the light of this. He and military commanders allied to him were thought to have opposed Bouteflika's bid for a second term and backed Benfli. Other major military power brokers would be reassigned to minor posts or withdraw from politics in the years that followed, underlining Bouteflika's gradual monopolizing of decision-making. The Kabyle population boycotted the election. Participation did not exceed 11%. Reconciliation plan. During the first year of his second term, President Bouteflika held a referendum on his Charter for Peace and National Reconciliation, inspired by the 1995 Sondidio platform document. Bouteflika's plan aims at concluding his efforts of ending the civil war, from a political and judicial point of view. He obtained large popular support with this referendum and has since instructed the government and parliament to work on the technical details of its implementation. Critics claim that the plan will only grant immunity to members of the armed forces responsible for crimes, as well as to terrorists, and have argued for a plan similar to South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission to be adopted instead. Bouteflika dismissed the calls, claiming that each country needs to find its own solutions to ending painful chapters of its history. He has received large political support on this issue, from both the Islamist and the nationalist camps, and from parts of the democratic opposition. The amnesty plan was rejected by the main remaining insurgent group, the GSPC, although perhaps as many as several hundred fighters still left their hideouts to claim amnesty. The group's warfare against the Algerian state continues despite reconciliation plan, although Bouteflika's government claims it has had an impact in removing support for the group. In 2006, the GSPC was officially accepted as a branch of al-Qaeda in a video message by Ayman al-Zawahiri. Soon thereafter, it changed its name to al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Bouteflika has kept the amnesty option open, apparently open-ended despite the end of the deadline stipulated by the reconciliation law, while simultaneously pursuing the rebel group militarily. Algerian forces have scored several major captures of GSPC AQIM commanders, but the group's top leadership remains at large, and armed activity is frequent in Kabylie, with AQIM-connected smuggling networks active in parts of the Desert South. Unlike in previous years, AQIM have begun using suicide attack tactics, and in 2007-2008 launched several major attacks in Algiers and other big cities. Economic policies. The first year of Bouteflika's second term also featured a new 5-year plan, much larger this time drafted. The Complementary Plan for Economic Growth Support aims for the construction of 1 million housing units, the creation of 2 million jobs, the completion of the East-West Highway, the completion of the Algiers subway project, the delivery of the new Algiers airport, and other similar large-scale infrastructure projects. The PCSC totals $60 billion of spending over the 5-year period. Bouteflika also aims to bring down the external debt from $21 billion to $12 billion in the same time. He has also obtained from Parliament the reform of the law governing the oil and gas industries, despite initial opposition from the workers' unions. However, Bouteflika has since stepped back from this position, supporting amendments to the hydrocarbon law in 2006, which propose watering down some of the clauses of the 2005 legislation relating to the role of Sonatrach, the state-owned oil and gas company, in new developments. It also proposes new provisions enabling the country to benefit from windfall taxes on foreign investors in times of high prices. Bouteflika has also put up for sale 1,300 public sector companies, and has already achieved privatization of about 150 of them, mainly in the tourism, food processing, cement, construction material and chemical industries. Foreign policy. On the international scene, Bouteflika's second term has seen diplomatic tensions rise with France due to the controversial voting by the French Parliament of a law ordering French history school books to teach that French colonization had positive effects abroad, especially in North Africa. The diplomatic crisis which ensued has put on hold the signing of a friendship treaty with France. Ties to Russia have been strengthened by large imports of Russian military hardware. About $7 billion was spent in one single purchase year. Although relations entered a rocky phase, at least temporarily, when Algeria refused to accept some MiG fighter jets due to their allegedly poor quality. Rumors of the two countries negotiating a form of cartel for natural gas, similar to OPEC's role in oil affairs, with Iran and Qatar also involved, have appeared repeatedly, and Bouteflika has confirmed an interest in the idea. Bouteflika has also carefully cultivated a relationship with China, with exchanges of state visits between the two countries. Algeria has remained involved in Arab affairs, and seen a somewhat growing role there. In 2004 Bouteflika also organized the Arab League Summit and became president of the Arab League for 1 year. His calls for reform of the League did not gain sufficient support to pass in during the Algiers summit however. Like in previous years since the late 1980s, Algeria has kept a relatively low profile in the Palestine and Iraq issues. Algeria has remained preoccupied with the Western Sahara issue, counter-lobbying Moroccan attempts to gain international acceptance for Moroccan-ruled autonomy in the disputed territory, at the expense of Polisario's calls for the long-since-decided self-determination referendum to finally be held. Relations with Morocco therefore remain poor, and Algeria in 2008 repeatedly refused to answer Moroccan demands to open the common land border, which has been closed since 1994. Both Morocco and Algeria have since approximately 2005 spent several $1 billion in what could be described as an arms race between them, mainly on modernizing and expanding their air forces. In sub-Saharan Africa, a major concern of Bouteflika's Algeria has been on and off Tuareg rebellions in northern Mali. Algeria has asserted itself forcefully as mediator in the conflict, perhaps underlining its growing regional influence. Algerian interest is driven by its extensive interests in the region, smuggling route as well as legal economic activity crosses these virtually unguarded borderlands, and refugees from the conflict have entered southern Algeria to mix with the Tuareg populations there. Also, the area is known as a hideout of a southern branch of AQIM, further heightening Algeria's interest in the area. Compromise peace agreements were reached in 2007 and 2008. Both mediated by Algiers. The related Tuareg revolt in neighboring Niger has not seen the same Algerian involvement, even if the anti-government MNJ movement has on at least one occasion called for Algerian mediation similar to in Mali. Algeria's involvement in Africa has otherwise been concerned with supporting the African Union, and been marked by a rapidly strengthening coordination with South Africa, which, among other things, has emerged as Algeria's main ally on the Western Sahara issue. All in all, Algeria's foreign policy under Bouteflika remains hinged on same axis as under earlier governments, emphasizing South ties, especially with growing Third World powers and guarding the country's independence in decision-making vis-à-vis the West, although simultaneously striving for good trade relations and non-confrontational political relations with the EU and USA. President of Vietnam Nguyen Minh Triet on July 16, 2009 met with Bouteflika on the sidelines of the 15th Non-Aligned Movement Summit in Egypt. President Triet and Bouteflika agreed that the two countries still have great potential for development of political and trade relations. Triet thanked the Algerian government for creating favorable conditions for the Vietnam Oil and Gas Group to invest in oil and gas exploration and exploitation in Algeria. Hospitalization in 2005 and later, Bouteflika was admitted to a hospital in France on November 26, 2005, reportedly suffering from a gastric ulcer hemorrhage, and discharged 3 weeks later. However, the length of time for which Bouteflika remained virtually incommunicado led to rumors that he was critically ill with stomach cancer. He checked into the hospital again in April 2006. A leaked diplomatic cable reveals that by the end of 2008, Bouteflika had developed stomach cancer. In spring and summer 2013, Bouteflika stayed near 4 months in a hospital in Paris dealing with health problems. Constitutional amendment for a third term, Bouteflika appointed a new prime minister, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, in 2006. Bouteflika then announced plans to amend the Algerian constitution to allow the president to run for office indefinitely and increase his powers. This was widely regarded as aimed to let Bouteflika run for president a third term. A referendum was originally scheduled for 2007, but cancelled for reasons never explained. In 2008, Bouteflika was again shifted out of the premiership and his predecessor Ahmed Aouyar brought in, having also come out in favor of the constitutional amendment. The Council of Ministers announced on November 3, 2008 that the planned constitutional revision proposal would remove the presidential term limit previously included in Article 74. The People's National Assembly endorsed the removal of the term limit on November 12, 2008. Only the Rally for Culture and Democracy voted against its removal. Third term as president, 2009 €14, following the constitutional amendment allowing him to run for a third term. On February 12, 2009, Bouteflika announced his independent candidacy in the 2009 presidential election. On April 10, 2009, it was announced that Bouteflika had won the election with 90.24% of the vote, on a turnout of 74%, thereby obtaining a new 5-year term. Several opposition parties had boycotted the election, with the opposition Socialist Forces Front citing a tsunami of massive fraud. Fourth term as president, 2014 present, following yet another constitutional amendment, allowing him to run for a fourth term, President Abdelaziz Bouteflika announced that he would. He very seldom appeared in person on the campaign trail. On April 18, 2014, he was re-elected with 81% of the vote, while Bouteflika was second-placed with 12.18%. The turnout was 51.7%, down from the 75% turnout in 2009. Again, several opposition parties had boycotted the election, making allegations of fraud. 2010 €12 Algerian protests. See also, Order Group, Notes. References, French, Official Biography, Further Reading, Ľziz, Paul. The Battle of the Kasbah, Terrorism and Counter-Terrorism in Algeria, 1955–1957. New York, Enigma Books. ISBN A978-1-929631-30-8. Home, Ola. Algeria, President Bouteflika's second term. Mediterranean Politics 10, 117 €122 doi, 10.1080/1362939042000338881. Tlima Section A9, Rachid. Algeria under Bouteflika, Civil Strife and National Reconciliation. Carnegie Papers 7a, External links, official site.